UFC 271 result, takeout. It's time for Israel's Adsaniya to drop to 205 pounds. Tatoowasa did a match. A wild night in Houston at UFC 271 on Saturday ended with a very tactical 5-round rematch of the middleweight title. Israel Adesanya added a second victory over former champion Robert Whittaker to his growing legacy. This time by unanimous decision in a close fight. Rising heavyweight Tai Tuivasa also shocked the Toyota Center crowd by knocking out hometown favorite Derrick Lewis in stunning fashion. Let's take a closer look at what we learned from a memorable evening inside the Octagon. Can't get enough boxing and MMA? Get the latest in the world of combat sports from two of the best in the business. Subscribe to Morning Combat with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell for the best analysis and in-depth news, including instant analysis of UFC 271 at the conclusion of the event below. Whittaker was better, but not by enough. A far cry from their first meeting in 2019 when Adesanya captured the 185-pound title via resounding knockout. Whittaker brought a much more varied attack to set the tone for the 5-round chess match that ensued. And while Whittaker deserves credit for controlling the terms of the fight the rest of the way, he loses the right to argue about the close scoring in favor of Adesanya by not taking enough chances to sway the judges. Whittaker relied on his boxing off the back foot to slow the pace and neutralize Adesanya. He even mixed in strategic takedown, but Adesanya never stayed down long enough to take damage and chopped away at Whittaker's lead leg enough to keep him honest. Adesanya also used his height and reach advantages well to never stay in range long enough. Giving credit to where it's due, Whittaker's evolution from their first fight was evident in this one. He very well might retire one day in discussion among the best middleweights in MMA history. But he's not better than Adesanya, not in 2019 and not this time either. Adesanya should consider a full-time move to 205 pounds in his second straight rematch on Saturday. Adesanya left little doubt as to who is still the best middleweight in the world. But even though a potential new challenger might have emerged on this night, the Last Stylebender is slowly running out of options in his own division. Staying put at 185 pounds could net Adesanya enough title defenses to crawl closer in the history books to Anderson Silva's legacy. But the best way Adesanya can close ground on the G.O.A.T ahead of him is to consider a second run at the light heavyweight title. Adesanya was competitive in his decision loss to former champion Jan Blachowicz last year, and he remains so far ahead of his peers at middleweight that, at age 32, this might be the best time for Adesanya to begin a dedicated move north to maximize his opportunities. Adesanya has the frame to handle more bulk if he builds up correctly. He could also compete right away against the light heavyweight elite in search of a second UFC title in as many divisions. Tai Tuivasa just made a massive leap. He was already the hard-hitting clown prince of the heavyweight division and the fighter who is always down to get down, but Tuivasa never quite screamed, closing in on a title shot. Yet the 28-year-old native of Australia is closing in on such an idea after recording his 5th straight knockout win. This was the most impressive of the group by far, considering former 2-time title challenger Derrick Lewis had the hometown crowd behind him and the UFC record for most career knockouts. Tuivasa took Lewis' best shots and never stopped showing his willingness to welcome danger. Even after a first round that saw Lewis surprise with multiple takedowns and heavy offense from top position, Tuivasa was forced to prove his chin was just as powerful as his striking as he lured Lewis into a war in round 2 before shockingly depositing the Black Beast face down on the canvas following a vicious standing elbow. Tuivasa's potential as a marketing gem is through the roof. Showies for everyone, indeed. Cannonier deserves the next shot at the middleweight title. The 37-year-old is operating at an extremely high level since moving down to middleweight in 2018. The former heavyweight is now 5-1 at 185 pounds after ending Derek Brunson's 5-fight win streak in brutal fashion. Cannonier survived a gnarly opening frame largely on his back as Brunson ended round 1 with a choke sunken in deep, but Cannonier's devastating power took over from there as he dropped Brunson and battered him on the ground until the towel was thrown from the corner. Cannonier has responded intelligently to his 2020 loss to Whittaker by rounding out his game and increasing his focus and poise. This is his time, and Cannonier's passionate call-out of UFC President Dana White to grant him the next shot will be hard to ignore. Is Bobby Green a legitimate lightweight contender? Don't look now, but the 35-year-old just might be, provided he can maintain the level he is currently operating at. Just 3 months after demolishing former title challenger Al Iaquinta in a first-round TKO, Green scored possibly his most impressive victory in 18 trips to the Octagon by outpointing Nasrat Haqparast via wide decision. The well-traveled Green is never shy to taunt his opponents relentlessly, but he has figured out how not to let it become a distraction or affect his defense. Green's head movement and ability to roll with shots was a lead against Haqparast, allowing him to operate close enough to do consistent damage with his hand. Green's technique and constant volume make him a legitimate threat who has found a level of balance to his game for the first time.